Now that Pokemon Legends ZA is just around the corner, let's talk about my Legends ZA wishlist. So in Pokemon, there are two different categories of Pokemon players, and I'm going to be categorizing them as casual and competitive players. Casual players are people who just play through the Pokemon game for the fun of it because they enjoy Pokemon, whereas competitive is more of a numbers game where people min-max these Pokemon. Competitive players like me want more Pokemon and more items to use because in my opinion Generation 9 VGC is kind of getting a little stale, and also because ZA likely won't be the next generation that we play on for competitive, just like how Legends Arceus wasn't and Sword and Shield continued to be the game that we played on. However, even though these two are different markets, before being a competitive player, a person must be a casual player who love the game as much as these players. And with that being said, I want the best version of Legends ZA, so I want this game to be enjoyable for competitive, casual players, and Pokemon's main demographic, kids. But before we get into my wish list, I just want to say, I haven't played Pokemon Legends Arceus yet, but I've seen quite a lot of gameplay, so I know my way around Pokemon Legends Arceus. Also, it's kind of sad that Gen 5 didn't get a remake because it was supposed to be the next remake game, and Generation 5 is my favorite generation, but I think Generation 6 needed it more than Generation 5, because Generation 5 is way more of a complete game than Generation 6. Alright, let's now get into my wish list. The first thing on my wish list is a more intricate story. In my opinion, the story in X and Y feels very unfinished, and it's very surface level to me. And also, there's a lot of places that feel empty or unused, like the Terminus Cave. I know in like the Terminus Cave you can catch Zygarde in there, but Zygarde isn't really talked about in the story, and it's kind of just stuck in there in the cave. Like until you find the Zygarde, you don't really know what a Zygarde is. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know Zygarde was in the game until Pokemon Sun and Moon came out with Zygarde cells. And then I checked what generation Zygarde was from, and it was from Generation 6. And I'm like, this Pokemon's from Generation 6, what the hell? Or even something like Mewtwo in like the Pokemon Village in the, I think it's called the Unknown Cave. I don't even remember like encountering a Mewtwo in X and Y and even knowing that there was a Mewtwo in X and Y, but apparently there is. And even in these areas, I wish there was more things you could do. Like in the Pokemon Village, which was a reference to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, it's just a bland area with Mewtwo, and you have to talk to the 8th gym leader there to fight him at the gym. That's all you really can do. Like, I wish in the Pokemon Village they would have added like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Village facilities. I think it'd be a pretty nice Easter egg and make the Pokemon Village way more lively. Like, imagine in the Pokemon Village you get to see the Kecleon shop, the Duskull Bank, Kangaskhan Storage, Slowking's Elder, Gastrodon Judgment House, or even the Slaking Roof Reminder, or even something like the Kirby Station. You can't even take the train anywhere. And like, I would want to take the train somewhere. I know in Black and White there was a dead-end trail from somewhere to Anvil Town. I still think that'd be a cool addition instead of not just adding anything. Well, I did read that there was a theory that Kirby Station does go to Anvil Town, but it's just a theory. Or even something like the Sea Spirit Den in the Azure Bay. And I don't even know if you guys heard of the Azure Bay before. I'll be honest, I didn't even know about the Azure Bay until the Core 4 had a Pokemon X and Y Soul Link Cage Lock, I'm pretty sure. And basically what you do in the Sea Spirit Den is you get an Articuno Zapdos Moltres depending on what starter you choose, and after you beat the Elite Four and encounter them roaming 11 times. I'll be honest, 11 times is so random and I don't know who you have to talk to in order for you to know this, but if I didn't know about Azure Bay, I would never even know about the Sea Spirit Den or anything Articuno Zapdos Moltres related. After Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire came out, there were talks from Game Freak that there was supposed to be a Pokemon Z that was coming out, but I'm not sure why they stopped the development and everything. I just assumed that they wanted to create something special for the 20th anniversary or something new instead of just releasing a Pokemon Z, but I'm not Game Freak, so I don't really know. In Legends ZA, since the game is in the past, I would love to know more about the Evo team's philosophy, because in my opinion, Team Flare's plan seems very surface level and they didn't put too much thought into it. So basically, Team Flare's plan was to create a better world by eliminating everyone but themselves and making as much money as possible. So basically, global genocide. But one thing I found pretty confusing was that only the admins and Lysander knew about this plan, and not even the members of Team Flare knew about this plan. So these people were just following these admins blindly. Even though this is just a blanket statement, in the game there's not much else that they talk about. And in my opinion, there's a lot of questions you can ask with this philosophy. If there's no one else in the world, why do you need money? And basically you'll be in a free market economy, but there's no competition. Aside from the giant weapon, why do they need money? Or even like, how is Team Flare going to make money by creating a giant weapon? Like, they're not going to subsidize this weapon by the Pokemon government, whatever the Pokemon government is in the Pokemon world. And I think like maybe having more concrete ideas and concrete dialogue to talk about these ideas and explanations why they want to create this ideal world would be better in Pokemon Legends ZA, but maybe it's too deep for a kid's game, for a Pokemon game, I'm not too sure. And now that we're on the topic of evil teams, I'm not sure how Legends ZA will go into like the Pokemon timeline, but I would love to see a bit of the Kalos War that happened 3,000 years ago before Pokemon X and Y, but I don't know if it's possible because Pokemon Legends Arceus only takes place 150 years ago. And if we do see the Kalos War, I do want to see the battle between two regions and which two regions of Kalos or Kalos and a different region were in war. And most importantly, AZ's Floette. AZ's Floette is not even talked about that much in Pokemon X and Y, so I at least want a little event or a little Easter egg area about AZ's Floette. AZ was gifted this Floette from his mother, and the only time we really see AZ's Floette was when it was returned to him during the parade at the end of the story. I would also love to see AZ in the game, because everything about him is just so mysterious. Like, and if he's in the game, I would love to see him use his Floette, because it actually does have a different base stat total than the regular Floette, and it's actually a much better Pokemon than the other Floette. And AZ's Floette can't even evolve. It doesn't have a pre-evolution or a post-evolution. And I would love to see AZ's Floette use his signature move, which is Light of Ruin, somewhere in the story. Next part of the story, if you're going to have rivals in the game, please have different rivals or less annoying rivals. I swear to God, having 4 rivals is too much for a Pokemon game. If I remember them correctly, there's Tierno with the black and yellow shirt. There's Trevor, which is like the orange hair short girl. And then there's Shauna, which is like the pigtail girl with like the pink shirt. And then there's Callum or Serena, depending if you pick male or female. These rivals were so insufferable, I swear to God. And they didn't even seem like rivals, they just seemed like friends. What I will say about the rivals, their music is really good. I love the rival music in Pokemon X and Y. Now, because Pokemon Legends CA is a game in the past, I'd love to see more historical areas be implemented into the game. I read this on Reddit somewhere, and I think the Catacomb would be a cool addition to Pokemon Legends CA, because the Catacomb is basically an underground area underneath Paris, which basically just holds the remains of 6 million people. And even if it's a very small thing, it'd be cool. Like, we can tie this back to the story of the Kalos War, because the Kalos War 3,000 years ago killed a lot of people back then because they used the ultimate weapon. They could have a little area down in the catacomb where they talk about like, oh, these people are from the war 3,000 years ago. These are everyone that passed away, or this is like a cemetery. Another area I would love to go to is the Louvre Museum, which it is a national art museum. I think it'd be cool to just have a bunch of things in display talking about the Kalos War that happened 3,000 years ago, or like just like here are the weapons that we used, or here's a Floette, or here's just a bunch of paintings from the Kalos War, or here's a bunch of drawings. Alright, so the second point is the starters. Obviously, me and a bunch of other Pokemon fans want starters of our favorite Pokemon. So for me, it would be the Gen 3 starters or even the Gen 4 starters. And honestly, I feel like a lot of the weaker, unpopular Pokemon should deserve the spotlight here. So something like a Meganium. And I'm thinking like the Chikorita line or the Chespin line for grass types. Maybe the Sobble line for water type. And the Tepig or Fennekin line for the fire type. I feel like alternate forms of these Pokemon would benefit them so much more, because I'll be honest, like, why would you even use the Chikorita line when there's Bulbasaur right there, who's just a better Pokemon in my opinion? Or even like Tepig. I personally would prefer Torchic or Chimchar from the firefighting line than Tepig. Well, as a kid, I did pick Tepig in Black and White, and Turtwig in Diamond and Pearl, and Trico and Hoenn, but that's besides the point. Even something like Fennekin, I feel like deserves a redesign. The one thing about Fennekin's shiny looks really cool. The Fennekin line, oh my, they're one of the prettiest shinies, I swear to god. If I were to give a type to these Pokemon, Chikorita, I feel like would benefit a lot from the Fairy type. I know a lot of Pokemon ROM hacks use Fairy for Chikorita. Honestly, I really do think a Fairy type is a pretty fair typing for Chikorita. Tepig, I would definitely not go firefighting. I want to say Fire Rock, but Fire Rock honestly would make it more weaker. Unless it has like Water Absorb or something like that. I don't know, I'm leaning towards Fire Rock because I feel like Tepig with like Head Smash Reckless would be really strong. I would love Fennekin to turn into something like Dark Magician, something like Ghostfire or like Psychic Ghost. I know they can't really do Psychic Ghost because that defeats the purpose of a Fire type starter, but you know, there's a first for everything. But then it might be a bit too similar to Typhlosion and people might call them out for it. So another typing I would consider for Delphox would be Fire Dark. Because if we go with the Dark Magician style and the kind of darker style, even though it's not Fire Ghost, I think Fire Dark would be pretty cool too. And like maybe since it's Fire Dark, instead of making it more ghost-like, make it look a bit more evil-like. And then the last starter I suggested was Sobble. Probably Water Dragon because it is a reptilian, or even Water Normal because it's a Charmeleon. Honestly, I would love to give Sobble the Water Psychic type and kind of feed into this idea of Sobble being a detective and a psychic maybe. Alright, so the next thing on my list is to have better gameplay mechanics. So if I do remember correctly, in Pokemon Legends Arceus, it really felt like that the battling system was like you KO, they KO, you KO, they KO. And even though I haven't played Legends Arceus, the turn system was kind of confusing to me and like I didn't really understand it. Because sometimes when you go normal style, the opponent still moves twice again, which I'm like, I don't really know what that's about. I feel like having a more defined and clear system that talks about the combat and what happens when, and like speed tiers and whatnot would be great. Another thing I would love is to have different styles than just normal, strong, and agile. I don't know what other styles they can add. I feel like the gameplay is a bit difficult compared to other Pokemon games, especially because the battle style is in set mode. The turn system is not linear. That's the best way I can put it. And when I was battling on my friend's Switch to play Pokemon Legends Arceus, it just seemed like it was like he killed, they kill, he killed, they kill until the battle was over. I don't really know how I feel about it, I'll be honest with you. The next point on my wish list, Pokemon. The different Pokemon I want. At the start of Generation 7, they introduced Alolan for Sun and Moon, Hisuian for Legends Arceus, Galarian for Sword and Shield, and Paldean for Scarlet and Violet. My only problem is Kalosian does not seem to roll off the tongue compared to Alolan, Hisuian, Galarian, and Paldean. So like, I don't know what they're gonna name it. I wouldn't mind if it's Kalosian, but to me it just doesn't sound right. In terms of actual Pokemon, I would want regional variants of weaker or less popular Pokemon. Something like a Delibird, Mantine, Skarmory, Huntail, Gorbis, Chimecho, Maractus. I can go on for days, but like, who even remembers these Pokemon? Like, I feel like not that many people remember these Pokemon unless they're your favorite Pokemon. I feel like I would want regional variants of popular Pokemon too. I don't know, like a Lucario? Like Togekiss? I would also want these regional variants of less popular Pokemon with little to no evolutions. Actually have a bit of spotlight and have a bit of like, I just know Hisuian and Quillfish is used quite a bit now. No, not too much in competitive, but like, there's more people who know Quillfish now. To me, even like Executor, I kind of remember Executor now because of its long freaking neck for Alolan Executor. Not that I didn't know of Executor before, but like even something like Marowak, like obviously find Alolan Marowak so much cooler and so much better than just regular Marowak. And just having Alolan forms of these less popular Pokemon will make these Pokemon a lot more memorable. But I do want to touch a bit on what I would like to see in alternate forms. So I think the list would include Stoutland, Electros, Volcarona, Gourgeist. If you know about Gourgeist, you do know. And I know 3 of those 4 Pokemon are from Pokemon Black and White, but they're my favorite games. I do have a little bias for Black and White. I feel like Electros is a good Pokemon and a good Pokemon design, but I feel like it suffers a lot from having a lot of its stats distributed into special attack and attack, and not that many stats distributed into its other stats. There's kind of an identity crisis for Electros in that sense. Like, do you go something like a flamethrower or a discharge set, or do you go something like a wild charge U-turn set? There's a lot of ways this Pokemon can be played, but none of the ways that you can play this Pokemon are good. Moving on to forms, they could definitely add new Wormadam forms, similar to how they have like 38 freaking Alcremie forms. And though like even if you add more forms, Wormadam wouldn't be any good. But like, I feel like it kind of just be funny to just have a bunch of different Wormadam forms. I think it'd be cool to have a form of Porygon Z, because Legend ZA, Porygon Z, there might be a correlation. I'm not too sure. I feel like it'd be cool to have a different form, like Kalosian Porygon Z, or even a Mega Porygon Z. A bit of the Megas and Legendaries now. So, since this game is primarily revolved around Zygarde, Yveltal, and Xerneas, I'd love to see more forms of them, actually. One idea I had was it'd be cool to have references of maybe Dragon Ball Z, because they're both Japanese Pokemon in Dragon Ball Z. So like maybe like Zygarde 9000. I feel like Zygarde 9000 is kind of unrealistic unless it's the final boss, similar to how Eternamax is a final boss. But realistically speaking, I'd love to see either like Zygarde 150%, 200%, or even like something like -%. I don't even know what -% would be. Maybe like Zygarde's still in this little egg. As for Yveltal and Xerneas, I think it'd be cool somewhere in the plotline to show their future and past form of legendaries. But just how they did with Cyclozar, Koraidon, and Miraidon in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I could even see a timeline where Xerneas and Yveltal were the energy source to get the final weapon going. So they had to research the previous forms of these two Pokemon to get to the strength these Pokemon are today. Similar to how researchers were artificially creating Mewtwo, they would be artificially creating Xerneas and Yveltal, because one is life and one is destruction. Again, something like Zygarde being 150% or 200%, we can circle back to the story we talked about previously, which Zygarde was supposed to be the ultimate weapon either in the Pokemon X and Y timeline, or the 3,000 years ago war timeline, which is why he has a percentage of over 100%, because they overanalyzed their research and they made this Pokemon way too strong. Mega Evolutions. First, I would love to see more in-depth explanation of the history of Megastones, or even the Sundial from Anastar City. All you really see in the Sundial from Anastar City is like a little information box, and that's really it. One Mega I would love to have is Mega Flygon. The reason why I want Mega Flygon is because when Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire came out, the artist who was trying to design Flygon couldn't think of a design, basically artist block. So Mega Flygon ended up being scrapped. So I think it'd just be a cool full circle moment if Mega Flygon was added into Pokemon Legends ZA. I feel like Pokemon that get Mega should either be Pokemon that are either very bad, or plus 100 increase in base stats, a better ability in typing will put it into viability. Maybe not overly broken, but like, wow, I kind of noticed this Pokemon now. This Pokemon is kind of decent. I was thinking something like a Xatu, Ledian, and Castform. I know Ledian is very buffed in a lot of Pokemon ROM hacks, but I'd love to see that come into fruition in Legends ZA. And one big thing, please bring back old Megas. Maybe not Mega Ray, but please bring back old Megas so we can use them and play with them one last time. And one big thing is that we need more Generation 6 Pokemon with Megas, because there's only one Pokemon in Generation 6 that has a Mega, and that's Mega Diancie, which actually, something quite funny about Mega Diancie is that it was introduced in Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire because of the movie, and not in Pokemon X and Y. I'll be honest, it's kind of insane to me that this generation that's home to Megas, that introduced this gimmick, has one Mega. That's it. The other gimmicks that were introduced in Pokemon introduced a lot of Pokemon in that generation that had that gimmick. Like, off the top of my head, let's talk about Sword and Shield with Dynamax, or Gigantamax. Like, we have Grimmsnarl right there. We have Sandaconda right there. I think there's a Corviknight one, I'm not too sure. And I think it's just kind of weird to have only one Pokemon that has a Mega in that gen. Potential Pokemon that need Megas in Generation 6, in my opinion, include something like a Delphox or Chestnut, if they're not a starter in the game, because compared to Greninja, they just feel so much weaker. Or maybe even like a Furfrou. I just love that this small poodle Pokemon just turns into a giant mega poodle Pokemon. It's just like kind of an evolution of a dog. And also I think it'd be pretty cool to have 9 different designs of a mega evolution because there's a bunch of different trims of Furfrou. Oh yeah, I read on a Reddit post too that someone wanted to introduce Mega Charizard Z. I just find that so funny because like yeah, dude, Mega Charizard definitely needs more gimmicks given to him. You know, it's not like he got 2 Megas, he got a Gigantamax. No. I definitely don't think Charizard needs another gimmick. I feel like it's gotten enough love from the Game Freak company. But then again, I can see Game Freak giving a Mega to... It kind of feels like Charizard is like Game Freak's favorite child. Just like, yeah, Game Freak is basically like pampering Charizard, giving him everything he wants. Maybe not the typing or the stats, but whatever. One thing I would love is to use the gimmick more often, like giving more Mega Evolutions to just random trainers, gym leaders, and Elite Four members within reason. Like if there's like a fighting type gym leader, you're not gonna give him like Mega Abomasnow or something. Because in X and Y, only 2 trainers actually did use the gimmick, which is Diantha in the final fight with Mega Gardevoir, and Lysander's final fight with Mega Absol. And no, I'm not counting Karina with Mega Lucario because that was a rental fight, and she doesn't even use her Lucario or her Mega in that gym battle, which to me kind of sounds insane. However, there's a lot of talks about Mega coming back and Mega this, Mega that, Mega this in terms of news. But one of the big questions I have for Megas is, if Megas get introduced, will Megas be added to competitive battling as well? Like imagine having like a Mega Charizard X, you Mega Evolve it, and then you Terastallize it. How insane would that be? And like just having Megas and Terra in both competitive would just spice up the game so much and introduce something that's completely new. Completely new as in having 2 different gimmicks combined into one in terms of competitive. I feel like to balance things, if you Mega, you shouldn't be able to Terra. And the other way around too. If you Terra, you shouldn't be able to Mega. I don't know why you would Terra and then Mega though. That seems counterintuitive. Another big point of mine is to have better multiplayer capabilities. I'll be honest, in Legends Arceus, there are not that many multiplayer capabilities. Basically all you can do in terms of multiplayer is A, trade, B, retrieve lost satchels, which are basically items lost by the players because they took damage from wild Pokemon, and that's it. Like what? That's like nothing in terms of multiplayer capability. In terms of what I would want in terms of multiplayer, I want something similar to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where you can roam around with your friends, do raids, and find ways to incentivize multiplayer capabilities, like something like the Blueberry Academy quests. I know you can do the Blueberry Academy quests alone, but doing it with 4 people is 3 times more faster than just doing it alone. When I did the Blueberry Academy in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I just found 3 random people online and I just went with them. And it was kind of funny because like there are a few quests where it's like take a photo with your full team, and we would all somehow make it to the same spot without communicating at all, and just take a photo and just dip. Those small moments I just enjoy. I don't know why. I don't know if this is in the realm of possibility for Pokemon, but I would love if they added trainer battles exclusively for 2 people, where you bring 3 Pokemon, where your friend brings 3 Pokemon, and you also bring 3 Pokemon. Just like how in a lot of rival double battles in the story do that. For example, Mazdeep Space Center with Steven, or even like Mount Coronet with Dawn. I would honestly just love to be able to battle with my friends and fuck around, like, genuinely. And just having, like, would just be a cool addition that Pokemon's never seen before. Last time we got an Eeveelution was back in 2013, back when X and Y released, with the new Fairy type. Now, I'm not asking for a new type, because I think the type chart is fine as it is, but I'm asking for a new Eeveelution. It's been 12 years since Pokemon X and Y, and I'm just waiting for a new Eeveelution to come out. Another small thing on my wish list is the Easter egg with the mysterious girl from X and Y. If you don't know the clip, here's the clip right here. Maybe we can go back to this catacomb idea that we had previously, where this mysterious ghost girl was brought back from the dead from the catacombs from the 3,000-year-old war. The reason why she's like, you're not the one, is because she's trying to find and sense the trainer who does hold the ultimate weapon. Or this mysterious girl is kind of grieving in the catacombs because, let's just say her whole like family died or something, or like her friends died in the 3,000-year war, and she's trying to seek revenge and find the person who does have the ultimate weapon. And if they do have the ultimate weapon, like, she's gonna fight them or something. Or I think that'd be a nice little Easter egg and call back to Pokemon X and Y. Another thing on my wish list, I would love if they added more cities from Pokemon X and Y. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, there was a heavy focus on the Jubilee Village, and all the other 5 areas were basically a new area. Not that I dislike new areas and exploring new areas at all, but I would love to see how different cities or routes were laid out in the past, and kind of see these different areas in Pokemon X and Y as bare-boned before there were any rapid infrastructure development. This could also tie back to the whole Pokemon Village idea I had beforehand. I think it'd be actually cool to have the Pokemon Village as the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Village, and it's just selling a bunch of stuff and have all the shops surrounding it. Oh my god, dude, please Pokemon Legends CA implement this. Next up on my wish list, I would love to have just a completely fully open world game similar to Breath of the Wild. What I've heard from Pokemon Legends CA is that the game is not fully open world. Instead, it just has many different areas you can unlock in kind of like a hub system. Like, here's Island 1, you can go through Island 1, but you can't go to Island 2 until you finish Island 2. And I do love how they implemented the open world system in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and I hope that they keep this open world experience in Pokemon Legends CA. Also, a little story time. When I initially played Scarlet and Violet, because the game was open world, I played through the game entirely backwards. And I was like, wow, I didn't know they scaled the gym leader's level with my Pokemon's level. And then I went to North Providence 1 and fought the little camp there, and then I realized that the fight was way too hard, so I went around in the other circle, and I started facing like level 10s, 11s, and 12s, and I thought I was like the most stupidest person ever, because I just went completely the wrong way, and I was just grinding for so long to try and beat a bunch of these harder fights. It only really happened because I was adamant on not spoiling myself on what order you have to do the game in. Because like, I initially knew there was an order because it's Pokemon, but I didn't want to follow the precedent. I wanted to figure everything out. Also, it doesn't really help that I don't really read dialogue nowadays. It would be more beneficial in terms of like a game like Legends CA and Legends Arceus, because it allows for a lot more exploration and freedom, and it actually gives the players the ability to go make their own choices wherever they want to go. And I'll be honest, I don't think it's much of a harm either, because I think if they want to make it fully open world, they can lock progression behind missions. If you want to progress, you go to these like certain areas and like finish the missions and whatnot. Let's say you want to explore, you can still explore at the same time without like any downside. Next one on the wish list, I think this is a pretty hot take amongst everyone, but I personally would love to have the graphics of Pokemon Legends Arceus than anything. I'm pretty sure this is a hot take because I think a lot of people prefer Pokemon Scarlet and Violet aesthetic way more, but in my opinion, I really like the high contrast of Pokemon Legends Arceus instead of this super duper light style in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I feel like the high contrast and defined hue color gives the game more of a crisper and a bit more nostalgic feel. And also, I really like how the water looks in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and it looks way better than the water in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. To me, Pokemon Legends Arceus water looks way more realistic than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's water. To me, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's water seems very unrealistic, and it's a highly edited photo of the Bahamas water. Okay, last thing on my wish list, but I highly doubt we get this. Please bring back the Battle Factory and or any fun mini-games like Pokeathlon. In a lot of these newer Pokemon games, I feel like they lack a lot of these fun activities like the Battle Factory contest and Pokeathlon. And I'll be honest, like, they, aside from the story, like, they kind of give a lot more adventure and a lot more relaxation for me, kind of divert myself away from the whole adventure aspect of Pokemon and kind of just dress up my Pokemon. This Pokemon looks swaggy, this Pokemon looks cute, or like having a Pokemon Olympics, just like messing around with it. Just spend a day diverting from the story and just doing a bunch of the side stuff that I would like. If I were to chip in any ideas of new mini games, I'd love to have something like a Pokemon X and Y exclusive, maybe something like Go-Go Racing, to kind of connecting the point back to the multiplayer aspect, or maybe even bringing your friends into the Go-Go Racing to race with them. Okay, but one thing I also really did like about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, though it's not a permanent minigame, I really did like the Snow Slope run in the Glaciado gym, where you bring your legendary Pokemon at the top of the hill and basically go to the bottom of the hill and just have it's kind of like skiing. Well, it's basically like skiing, but on Koraidon and Miraidon. And I hope that Pokemon Legends ZA implements more things like that. Those are all of my ideas and or wish lists for Legends ZA. Let me know in the comment section down below if there's any ideas I did miss or any ideas you really like that would be implemented in Pokemon Legends ZA. I know this was a very extensive list and there's a lot of things I wanted to have in Pokemon Legends CA, but I'll be honest, I think I want the best for Pokemon and I want kind of balance the competitive side and also the casual side of me. So, which is why I tried to mix a bunch of stuff in. I think for most generations, I wouldn't have this many implementations in the game. Aside from maybe Usum, Ultra Sun and Moon, or even Sun and Moon. The main reason why I have so many suggestions in terms of Pokemon X and Y is because Pokemon X and Y is one of the games I'm very, very critical about. Not because I dislike it. I think there's a lot of things Pokemon X and Y could have improved on.